just wanted to put in a plug for Partners for Ethical Care. This is a relatively new organization, and the goal is to collect stories from people. So it's stories from parents, stories from detransitioners, stories from women who have been in bathrooms when men have come in, and told they're not allowed to complain. Stories from teachers who are uncomfortable with what's being taught in schools. Just to gather stories so that we can document what's happening. It's really our goal. And so if you go to partnersforethicalcare.com, and there's there's a live chat built in. Most of the time there's somebody there who will do live chat. Not always, because we all are volunteers. But if you send in your story and if you want more support, if you want resources, let us know, because that's the other thing that we try to do, is provide resources, provide support. If you're a new parent to this and just like freaking out because your kid's going down this route, we have lots of resources, and we can help connect you with other parents, help get you in support groups. And same for detransitioners. If you're a detransitioner, if you're suddenly realizing, this was not the right thing for me, and that you're feeling really lost, then we'd love to be there to support you.
Amazing.
And help. Yeah, so
That's fantastic.
yeah,
And you guys have a YouTube as well, YouTube channel?
yeah, we have a
Yeah.
YouTube. We have two different programs that we run on YouTube right now. One of them is Common Sense Care, and it's specifically a parenting program. So helping parents to navigate if their kid comes home and says that they have a gender identity issue. What does a parent do? And so that's one of the series. The other one is called Partners for Ethical Care Talks, and we just do every week. We look at the news and kind of deconstruct it and analyze, how is this going to affect women and children. And so those are the two programs on the YouTube. And then I have a personal YouTube station
Yeah.
where I do what you're doing here. I've primarily tried to focus on people who have different perspectives on this, so that we can document it, because I just feel like it's so important to archive these stories so that we have documentation of what went on, regardless of what happens in the future. These are really important stories that need to be captured.
I mean, I'm so new to all this feminism stuff. I had my own, I always thought feminists were loud and annoying and weird, because I thought about this recently. Like, why did I think that? Because once I started getting involved in it and being involved in online forums over it and whatnot, even when I heard about over it, I was like, oh, all females. Oh, I bet. I don't know. I just had this weird thing that I guess was embedded in me from growing up. And it was like my own thoughts were like such a lie. I joined it and it was a wonderful community. Like, no judgments, just like I don't know how to explain it. It was amazing, and my own idea of what feminists were or is was so wrong and not correct, and it's embarrassing to say that, but I have no problem admitting, my own journey and all this. But yeah, so I kind of joined all this madness in November last year, so I'm technically a baby. I don't want to say that because that's weird, but
Well, I
yeah.
think part of it is that there are so many different kinds of feminism. It's sort of like there are all different kinds of
Mm.
Christianity, and they're very different. I mean, they're different communities, because I've been just ridiculed by sort of some of these feminists who are saying that I have to accept, men as women, and they're claiming to be feminists, and I'm like,
You're not allowed to say that
no.
they're men. You're misgendering.
Right. And I had no idea. I thought, like, I had no idea. And I got in this discussion with someone, and she just attacked me for being transphobic. And that was sort of my first introduction to this. And I was like, what on earth are you talking
When was
about?
that?
It was probably about 4 years ago. So it
God, yeah.
wasn't that long ago. I mean,
Yeah.
most of this, I had no idea about what was going on. And I really thought this woman was just like off her rocker. I had no idea
Right.
what this was
Yeah.
like.
Well, it is off your
Yeah.
rocker speech, honestly. It's just
Yeah,
like,
and I really was like, this person just didn't take high school biology. If I just
mm.
explain this to her, then she'll get it. And obviously, I was completely wrong on that. She's-
Yeah, I don't know how to approach some of this stuff where I have currently someone who's willing to talk. I want to know what part of all this, like, she was led to believe and believed it, because then maybe I could be able to talk to her and navigate it. But there's so many angles to all this and so many ways to manipulate people that I don't know what would, because I feel like it's such a delicate tightrope walk of like, and I'm not here to like change people's minds about this, but I'm just trying to help them see the truth in all this. Um, I'm
Well, and
just so
I think it's
worried.
like an ideology, and so what happens whenever I try to even really gently kind of nudge somebody, I just get called transphobic. I get told that I should get choked with their girl dick. I get, I mean, it's just this like it's this anger and this attack and this unwillingness to even entertain the idea that maybe they're wrong. It's so hostile that it's hard
Yes.
to interact with them. And so I don't know. I mean, it's sort of like somebody's in a cult, and how do you go about deprogramming them? That's what it feels like to
Exactly,
me.
exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, 100%. I've been talking nonstop about the Scientology and or just the parallels and similarities. Or I was like, oh, I have to write this down. Actually, I wish I could pull it up, but
Well, and
just
one
their
of the
whole
things,
tactics of going after people and
yeah,
really go in all the way and aggression. And I just see it side to side looking at it. I'm like, I have to stop this documentary thing I'm watching and be like, oh my God, that's identical. Like,
yeah.
it's so very clear to me that, you know, it's not fun calling it like a cult because I'm sure people are like, wow, you've lost your mind. I'm like, but I'm not trying to be mean. Like, it
Yeah,
is. Like,
it is. It is. It's a brainwashing of sorts.
yeah.
And what I've found is that probably the best way to try and engage without, the complete like attack of like you're a turf and deserve to die, is to ask really gentle questions. And
Yeah.
even that can sometimes get you in trouble. And so, and I see it as very sad. I see it as, anybody who gets kind of um, brought into a cult that is
Captured. Yeah.
harmful and dangerous, those people deserve sympathy. But at the same time, it's also important to recognize that it could be really dangerous. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've seen women threatened with death and rape and torture. And for some reason, when men in a dress do it, it's okay.
Yeah.
But when, any
Because
other
we're the
time,
ones that's supposedly excluding, so therefore it's okay to be demonic and just, I mean, horrifying to another person. I'm sorry, I
yeah.
don't believe in if they are sitting there believing that we're evil and mean and are that awful or hate speech or whatever, which no, I don't believe in that stance of like, well, I'm gonna treat you the way that you treat me. I'm like, you're not gonna solve anything,
No.
like anything whatsoever. That's why I watch this happen, every day, all day. And I'm like, you're shooting yourself in the foot. If you had an ideology or something that was founded in something reality based, why would you do so many things to shoot yourself in the foot? Like be aggressive. It breaks my brain. I'm like, you're not helping whatever your cause is at all. Like, women are being affected by this, like by and large, and like currently what's happening to me is I'm losing my female best friends. I've lost males, but honestly, losing my female friends is the I've never experienced some I've never experienced something like this where it's such a mind fuck where I'm like, that's the most painful part, not necessarily about me and losing, people I love, but them being for something that's damaging to them, but they don't
Right.
see it because liberal feminism or I don't
You're not
know.
allowed to question. And what I think makes me so sad, I'm older than you, and one of the things that feminists have been trying to do year after year is break these stereotypes, break
Mm-hmm.
down gender roles. Um, help so that a woman can walk around in a t-shirt and jeans, and that's okay, and have short hair, and she's still a woman. We all know that. And to create spaces where women have accessibility, because when I was a little kid and women were first becoming firefighters, there weren't spaces for them to change in their locker
Mm.
rooms. And that was a way of excluding them from participating as firefighters. So women had to work hard. We had to work hard to get bathrooms and changing rooms in the Capitol. And now we have men who are taking over those spaces. And so it's like everything that we've been working for is just being overturned. And somehow they're even usurping, women's thinking. And it's almost like younger women didn't have to fight for all this. And so they don't know what they're going to lose, and they don't know how dangerous this is.
Yep.
And that's what makes me really sad.
You said exactly what I wrote down and wanted to bring up because I think it's an excellent point. And, I was born in the 80s and there was nothing that I felt like growing up at all where if there wasn't aware of it, of women's rights or spaces or anything being violated. I mean, obviously, growing up a woman, there's unfairness and whatnot, but there was no real, you know, massive global fight like what's going on now at
Mhm.
all. So it makes total sense. Like when you said that, I was like, oh, that's an excellent point. And also this whole COVID thing. You know, I know that men are going into females' bathrooms and whatnot now, but you know, I feel like the people that are going along with this and agreeing with it, being captured by the cult thing, haven't felt the repercussions or this come into real play because you're sitting in your comfortable home.
Mhm.
So it's so easy to be like, and this whole language thing I feel like is the biggest issue, where they say transgender woman and girl. This whole, like, Texas something wrote a tweet yesterday about transgender woman. I love how they wrote transgender woman and girl. They didn't say transgender woman and transgender girl. They wanted to use the word transgender as little
Right.
as they could. I don't even know if people are aware of
Yeah.
what transgender is. As well, but it's just such a wordplay where you read it and you go, well, I mean, yeah, women and girls should be in sports. It was all about saying that transgender women and transgender girls are being excluded from women and girls sports.
Right, right. I'm just working on a blog post about that right now, how the media is just completely turning this on its head. They're
It
talking about
is,
these poor people being banned from sports. They're not being banned from sports. They're being told that they have to compete against people of the same sex. So yes, it is. Nobody's saying you can't compete in sports. They're saying you have to be fair in the competition, and it's not fair to have men and boys competing against girls and
no,
women.
of course
It's just
not.
absurd. And the fact that the media is buying into this, and it's like this,
Oh yeah,
this hysteria about these poor people who are being excluded and persecuted and discriminated against. And it's like,
violence, suicide.
no, no, they're trying to um, push into our spaces to penetrate women's spaces in a way that is not okay. And the fact that the media is just going along with this just infuriates me.
Oh, mega. I'm so tired of it because it's, you know, deliberate wordplay, using a little amount of this word as little as you can, overemphasizing these words. It's just so infuriating, man, and it's very frustrating. And I've been feeling very beat down by it. And I know that's what they want, blah, blah, blah. It's a classic cult thing. I'm not,
Yeah.
you know, it's just one day, and I go to sleep and I wake up and I'm like, here I am ready to keep fighting this shit because that documentary, the I think it's called Dysphoric, right? The one that came out.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Unbelievable, incredible.
yeah, I'm so
Um,
glad that things like that are starting to get out there because, as
yes.
you said, I think most people don't have a clue. I didn't have a clue 5 years ago. Honestly, I had
Mm-hmm.
no idea
Yep.
what was going on. And again, it buys into this. They've tacked themselves on the LGB and
Mm.
somehow equated themselves and their struggles with the LGB, and it's completely different. But at the same time, most people see LGBT and they're like, oh, of course we're going to be tolerant. These people have really suffered and it's time for us to make amends, so we're going to go along with this. And now the LGB is starting to say, wait a minute, these people are going to take away our rights because they're
Oh yeah.
calling us bigots for having genital preferences.
Yeah.
um, so
That's so
any
ridiculous.
lesbian who has a genital preference is now considered a bigot. And I'm like, no, she's a lesbian. That's the very definition of being a lesbian.
Lesbians don't have dicks. I'm sorry. I don't care
No,
what you
and
want
they
to
don't want
say.
dicks. I mean, that's the
No,
point.
that's the whole, like, that's what lesbian is it not
Yes.
dicks at all?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. And
sorry,
it's
not
just
sorry.
the fact that they're just taking language and
Oh,
bastardizing it so
oh yes,
badly. Like, to me, that's what's scary, is that they can convince
yes.
people a man can be a woman and a lesbian should sleep with a penis, and that, boys can have vaginas. And it's just, they're teaching this to our children at a really young age. And we no longer have vaginas, we have front holes.
Oh yeah, no, not that shit again, please God. I said in my other video, I was like, front hole. I thought of like as a mouth. I'm like, okay. So
I
what I
just,
found was so interesting. I don't know if I've said it yet in any of my podcast stuff, or I'm sure I did, but not the video stuff. When I first started this discovery and research, I could not get enough because I'm like,
yeah.
what? Something was there, and it was firstly the Joe Rogan, Abigail Schreier, and Deborah So, I believe. And it just started there and it didn't stop. But I started looking at the LGB drop the T on Set It because I've been an avid Reddit user for years. I've loved it, but then it's just so much of this stuff I didn't realize how much I really was affected by being a woman
Mm.
in in my entire life, and it's honestly horrifying. And I thought maybe that's another reason why I didn't want to become a feminist, because maybe I secretly knew that how horrible.
I'm actually really interested to hear your story because you're sort of the demographic that we're trying to reach. Like, so how was it that you went from, being like LGBT to being like, get the T out of the LGBT and like get the T the heck out of my bathroom and out of my sports. And, how did what was the transformation that took place?
Man, I don't know. I think I keep thinking back on it, and I feel like because I used to love RuPaul's Drag Race. I come from I'm the youngest of a big family. I'm the black sheep, the artist, colorful piercings, tattoos, whatever. Never felt accepted by my family. It's fine now, but so I gravitate towards people that I feel like that are bullied or don't fit in a group, because I know what that feels like. So, and I just love weird, like colorful, avant-garde, breaking the norm stuff. So I also realized how much I was starting to accept what has become normalized to so many people, which is mind-blowing to me. And I'm so thankful that I kind of broke away from it. That doesn't mean I might still love weird and colorful stuff. That's not what I'm saying. Because I started following these accounts that are definitely BDSM and Japanese rope play,
All
which
right.
always shows the female submit. It's just like,
Yeah.
and they always try to paint that as like a loving. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, my gut feeling as a woman, that does not look loving or gentle or sweet to a female. Like I don't give a shit
Yeah.
what you say. Um, okay. So it's just a lot of
So,
stuff that
so
used
you're
to feel.
telling me that being spit in the mouth and choked doesn't sound like a good time to you. So
No, no.
so-
Like that's so dangerous. Like I feel like that kind of shit, and I'm not
yeah,
against like kinks and stuff. Stuff like that is such an adult theme that it really should not be played with or fucked around with
yeah,
teens that don't know what they're doing. They wear these collars that are
yeah.
submissive. The O-ring is a submissive thing, and I feel like girls that wear like I'm powerful, look at me, because I thought it was like a powerful thing, like I'm in power, but then someone was
No.
like, or I read up and I was like, that's a submissive thing that you're wearing.
And I think consent is right in there when you start
Oh,
looking at how this is eroding
huge.
consent.
Yes,
And
yes.
I mean, no matter what you think of BDSM, there is a strong component of consent, and that's
Yes.
always
That is the most
historically
important
been
part.
really important,
The
and that's
the
being
biggest part.
completely eroded right
Oh
now.
yeah.
Our kids
What are
especially
boundaries?
girls, are being
Oh
taught
yeah.
they have no consent.
Yeah. And
And
boundaries
you
are
can
being
argue
eroded.
whether or not somebody, a woman can reasonably consent, because there are all sorts of reasons why somebody might get into BDSM and think that she is fully consenting when in fact she isn't. I mean, it gets really complicated.
Yeah, I've thought about this so much where I'm
Yeah,
like, I'm not going to judge people for their fetishes and all their stuff they, sexual gratification and whatnot, but I feel like the BDSM thing is such there's a huge sense of me where I'm not comfortable with it, because I think that women or men, anyone, can act out trauma from
hmm,
their childhood or life thinking that it's healing it, but all I can think is that it's perpetuating it and keeping it on the forefront because you are using it as a sexual tool. And I just
right.
really think it's a dangerous place to put your mind. I thought RuPaul's Drag Race was them just putting on costumes and doing entertainment, and I had no. I mean, I just so much of this stuff was like segmented, and they weren't all put together now where I'm like, holy shit. Seeing RuPaul's Drag Race, I didn't put two and two that some of them could be AGPs or whatever, have pedophilia vibes.
Yeah.
I just didn't ever really think about it. I don't know. I want to be like, well, I always have this thing of like, well, what does Reddit think about this? Not that that's like the holy grail of truth, but I like it. To me, it's a space where people can kind of be themselves in a way, and say things really truthfully that people that I don't know, and that's what I like to get out of the internet, which is hearing other people's opinions from across the world or a globe. And Reddit is a place for that, sort of. And I typed in like Abigail Schreier just to see what they were saying about it after I saw that interview, and there was a whole thread. And someone mentioned something about how Gender Critical got deleted off of Reddit, and they were like, "Oh, here's a replacement on Set It," and I was like, "What the fuck is Set It?" So I clicked into that, and I was like, "Oh my god!" Somebody made an entire replica of basically Reddit because of all this shit that's not allowed on Reddit, or just getting away from the Reddit um, mind thing, I guess. But so then I found the LGB drop the T, and my mind was blown. I'm not a lesbian or bi, but I I grew up in a Southern Baptist family where homosexuality is not a good thing or looked up upon. But I come from the stance of I don't judge people for that. It's not my business. They're allowed to do whatever they. That's just not my business. Like, why would I judge? I really don't judge people for that shit. Even though I grew up in a family of,
Well,
that's
and they're
not the good thing,
so
or
different, and that's
oh,
something that I feel
hugely,
like
completely.
it's so important for people to understand that there's such a big difference between um, who somebody chooses to be intimate with
Yeah.
versus taking children and harming their bodies with experimental medical procedures
Yes.
by telling them they're inherently flawed, that they're born in the wrong body, and
Mm-hmm.
that the only way they can fix it is to damage themselves. Like, what?
Unreal.
That's
Unreal.
like night and day. They're like completely different.
Yeah, they're
Um,
not forcing you to say things to them, and they're not forcing you to
right,
believe and change your belief. Because, I
right.
have the belief of that. That doesn't mean I'm not going to have homosexual or gay or lesbian friends. Like, that's ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that's the other thing you mentioned about how we speak, that
yeah.
that we're being compelled to use these obscure, bizarre pronouns, this inaccurate. We're being compelled to lie. I even heard of a case of a child in a school, I believe it was in Oregon, who got disciplined for using the child, a fellow classmate's correct pronoun, but that child identified as something different. And so children are now being
Of
disciplined
course.
for telling the truth. And
Oh,
this
yeah.
this is
That's
again
dangerous. Yeah.
extremely scary. Yeah, this is so
Teaching you,
different.
yeah.
Yeah, than
Teaching you
just
to go against your natural innate gut. It's teaching you
yeah,
not to trust your gut feeling.
right, right. Yeah,
Redflag.com, like, that
yeah,
is terrifying.
yeah,
Suddenly your personal boundaries are, we can't allow
gone.
that because you're
Yeah,
a bigot. Like, that's, or
right.
just, I mean, that's it's so dangerous. So yeah, the whole, once I realized that the LGBT community was like, fuck this, no. And the whole subreddit, or I guess subset group, is called LGB Drop the T.
Yeah,
So my mind was blown. I just kept reading their stories, and then I found the Detrans subreddit, which is back on Reddit, and reading all those stories.
yeah,
And that was, I think that honestly, the Detrans stories are. I keep telling people this, like, who cares what I say? If you're offended by how loud I am, and I don't give a shit, just speaking my truth here. Don't listen to me then. Like, read and listen to the Detrans stories, because that's it. Like, what more could you possibly need to hear than
right.
the people that are being, or either currently or have been affected by this?
Yeah,
Are you going to really sit there and tell me that I'm still a TERF, or I'm anti-trans or trans exclusionary? By the
right.
way, let me
Well, and
clarify
here's
again. I'm not exclusionary. I
yeah.
am for trans identifying females who are females. Like, I don't exclude trans. Like, God, it's not about that. It really isn't.
Well, and I think that at least for me, I feel like they're really shooting themselves in the foot because if we started pushing and saying, men who like to be gender nonconforming
Mhm.
should be allowed and welcomed in the men's bathroom, that's where they should be. And and
Yes.
and and, and if they're catching flack for that, that's what we should be fighting.
Yes.
You have
Yes.
women who are gender nonconforming using the women's room, and if they catch flack for it, that's what we should be fighting. We should be
Amen.
fighting so that if men, say a man wants to compete in the Olympics wearing a woman's bathing suit, okay,
Mm-hmm.
go for it, as long
Yeah.
as he's competing against other men. And that's
Yes.
what I feel like they're really shooting themselves in the foot by, doing this weird somersault with biology and saying that they actually are women. Well, they're not, they're not.
Not even
And don't
remotely.
make us, yeah, don't try and what is it, kind of completely gaslight
Yeah.
society and have us accepting something that's not. But you were able to like sort of catch that by hearing these probably very compelling detransition stories where you started to realize there was a whole lot more than just sort of finding your authentic self going on in these communities.
Yeah. I guess because I also didn't hear anything largely on a large scale online or anything about the transgender anything somehow. Well, actually, I was involved in this whole gamer culture and the Ubisoft star player stuff, where we're awarded. That's a whole other bullshit. But we were in a community, or there was a group of us from all around the globe that got to go to some gaming event, and there was a man that was very tall, very awkward, but very funny. And I didn't know what they were. I didn't really concern me. I didn't want to. I could tell they were very like outcast, and people wouldn't really gravitate to them. I think it was a pretty big group, and I would sit in front of them. I sat in front of them during one of the breakfasts, and they seemed to be like not okay. And I was like, "Are you okay?" Because we're usually giggling and making really funny jokes. And they're like, "Yeah, I just had a I don't know panic attack or some sort of mental thing." And I was like, really trying to uplift their spirits because I could tell there's something mentally going on with this person. And that was, I realized later, I guess once I really thought about it, was a trans identifying male because they
Yeah.
had a female name, although their username was non-binary or something. I didn't know
Yeah.
what any of that shit was then. Honestly, I thought the non-binary thing was a gaming term because again, I came from the gaming background and
Yeah,
binary means
computer, yeah,
numbers,
makes
right?
sense.
So I was like, that's what I thought
I'm like
it was. I was
0
like, I
or
don't know.
1. I'm like a point 0.5 really.
I had no idea. So yeah, I didn't really. I mean, I didn't see it in for what it really was. Even though I'm trying to think if there's anyone else I knew. Oh, there was another star player that I mentioned this, where they were a man pretending to be a woman, and they just wanted attention. And I didn't know much about it, so in the sense, I guess I wasn't truly captured by it. And I woke up from it, even though I wasn't asleep, or I don't know. Yeah, the whole thing about like wearing women's clothing and suddenly you're a woman, you feel like a woman.
Is
Come
that so
on, this is so
insulting? Lindsay,
backwards.
what does it mean to feel like a woman? Can you tell me?
You just are. Like there's no fucking what does that even feel like? And if you ask them what that feels like, oh, I feel dainty and I'm gonna curl my hair. It's just like what the fuck is that? That's
Girl
not a
mode.
woman.
No.
Yeah. Oh god.
Well, and that's what I think is also scary is that what I really see happening is AGP, and for those who haven't heard the term, it's autogynephiles, who actually get sexually aroused by dressing up as women, which is fine if they want to do that in their bedroom.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Please don't bring it into my bathroom. But
Mm-hmm.
what we have is these AGPs who are kind of pushing this stuff onto kids.
Oh
Most of the
god.
kids who have gender dysphoria, who have gender identity issues, have experienced trauma, are in difficult situations, maybe are experiencing homophobia. A lot of them are autistic. So these are very marginalized kids who are, I see it as predators finding the most
Yes.
vulnerable
Yes. 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 Yes.
population,
Yes.
going after them, and then encouraging them to harm themselves. In any other situation, society would be up in arms. But in this situation, we're all like, oh, the poor autogynephile, they've had such a rough life. Let's just go ahead and be nice to them. Well, they're not being nice to other people, and they're certainly not
No,
being
not at
nice to
all.
our children.
Yep. 100%. And that's one of those words that, oh, let's not like I feel like they obviously shove that down or block and delete it
Well,
like that.
and Lindsay, since you and I don't know what it's like to be a woman, they're actually more women than we are because
Stop
they
it. Oh my
feel
god.
it.
Yeah. Oh, it's just once you read what they're actually saying, which if you don't know, get on Twitter. I would never usually say it to anyone because Twitter is
Yeah.
mostly trash until you actually use it for your advantage. It used to be terrible and just like crap because no one's built to listen to this many people in the world. But, I found so many feminists through there and it's been amazing because it is and can be a platform to speak truth. And I'm not sitting there. I'm not going to sit there. At first, I was like, oh God, certain things you can't say in a sentence because the algorithm or robot thing gets set off or someone's going to report you. But I don't really care anymore. I'm not purposely trying to get banned by any means, but will clarify like that's a man or that's a woman. I don't care anymore. I'm not going to live in this state of fear because that's not what I believe in. And this whole thing is making people live in a state of fear because that it helps their agenda keep floating along and growing
Well,
when
and the
people are
fact
too
that
afraid to speak
we
out.
have to be we have to be careful about calling a man a man or
Yeah.
else we might get in trouble. But they can say they want to rape us with their girl dick, or they want to
Exactly. It's
choke us, and
ridiculous.
that's
What the fuck is a girl
okay.
to get out of
I
here?
know, and that's okay, and they won't get in trouble for that. And
No,
that's,
not at all. Not at
to
all.
me, that's an indication something is wildly wrong. I mean, we're
Oh,
really
massive.
enabling bullies and telling
Hmm.
them, go for it. This is a population you do get to bully. And as you said, there's all kinds of feminists, but I have been very heartened
Hmm.
by the feminists I have found fighting this, because I don't think I probably, when I was in college, I was a feminist. I was, kind of a separatist feminist, actually. I
Oh,
had
what's
read
that?
all.
I don't know what that means.
Oh,
Remember, I'm new.
I know,
Learning.
very new. So I actually went into college thinking I would study to see if there was a way to fertilize an egg with another egg, so that
Hmm.
women could, end up procreating without needing men at all. So that basically we could just like get rid
Wow.
of them,
Hmm.
because I was like separatist feminist, meaning I just wanted a world without men. Um,
What led you to have that mindset?
I think a lot. It was trauma, a lot of trauma. I mean, I think that I had been, sexually assaulted when I was very little. When you take a little 5-year-old body and try to push a grown-up penis into it, it causes a lot of trauma, both physically and mentally. And I don't think I ever, there were a lot of ways in which that expressed itself, but at one point, when I was in college, it just came out as anger, just complete anger at men, because I hadn't experienced any really good guys. I hadn't had a lot of and thankfully, as I've gotten older, I've met men who are really good people, and that's helped tremendously. And
Hmm.
I've also met women who aren't so great, so I sort of like, got
For
that
sure.
balance where I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, I guess there's this balance. But
Hmm.
I just had such anger. I remember once, a friend and I, again, this is college. We got
Hmm.
carrots and we were sitting out on a front stoop of our dorm, smashing them and just yelling bloody penises, because we
Oh
were
my
just
god.
like, I mean, we were
You gotta
just
get that
like,
anger out. I mean, yeah.
yeah, there was so much anger, and
Hmm.
it was just
Hmm.
directed right at that appendage. So
Hmm.
you would think that I would be thrilled at the idea of men cutting off their penises, but I'm not,
I know. I
And
know.
the fact is that most AGPs, most of these people who are getting turned on by impersonating women, are not getting their penises cut off. They
No.
want them there to enjoy the scenery. I mean,
Yeah, it's the
they're-
whole that's the whole point, to keep it and sexually gratify yourself and use women as an object, like a I've read that whole
yeah,
elephant in the room thing, or read up on it.
yeah.
Not as much as I could be. I'd love to read that Blanchard or something book.
Yeah,
But
it's
it's
a
kind of
really
expensive. I
interesting.
know. I'm like, soon to
I actually
buy it.
saw this video from a guy who detransitioned. So
Mm,
he took the hormones. He realized it was a mistake. He said he was just a dude in a dress, but he said he kind of enjoys the fact that he grew breasts, because now
mm.
whenever he wants to, play with titties, he's got them right there. And I'm like, ah! Like, it's
Joy
just
for him. Joy to the world.
I mean, whatever turns you on, I guess. But at the same time, it is a sad world when we have, men who are, they're
Growing
more
up with.
turned on
Yeah.
by the idea of themselves being a woman
Yep.
than actually, being willing to go out and form relationships and have interactions with actual women. I mean, there's
Exactly.
something messed up going on.
And I've seen it, when I've read all these stories, countless, of it truly taking over their life, where it's all they think about. And I feel like this whole ideology and everything about it destroys, like, the essence of just a person existing as a person and living as their true self. And what I mean my true self is how you were brought into this world. Like, this is the body you have. No one else has that. If you touch it,
No.
like, that's your body. So when people say trapped in the wrong body, I'm like, I just don't get that. I'm like, that's your body. You're not
Well, and I
trapped.
get it, and this is where, again, this goes back to trauma, is that a
Yeah.
lot of kids who have had trauma dissociate, and that's really
Yes.
common.
Yes. Yes.
That
Yes.
was,
Yes.
I
Mm-hmm.
was dissociating all the time when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
I was diagnosed with a dissociative disorder. It's really common to have that
Mm-hmm.
sense of detachment from your body, and we used to recognize that as
Yeah.
a concern, that wasn't
Mm-hmm.
healthy, that it was problematic, because it was really it was, when I was disassociated, it was easy for me to do a lot of harm to myself,
Yeah,
because I,
of course.
and I also had like so much anger at my body. And
Mm,
so it used to be
mm-hmm.
that we recognized that as a problem. But
Yeah.
now we're like, oh no, let's encourage this idea that you can be born in the wrong body, that somehow that body that you're stuck with isn't the right one, and that you should do all these things to harm it. It's like the medical profession is now enabling self-harm on a level way beyond cutting. I
On the
mean,
most vulnerable, on the most, I feel like,
yeah,
yeah, damage, that really the ones that need the most help. This is why this is so agonizing for me to witness all this, and this just dystopian, whatever the word is, just nightmare hellscape of young girls chopping off their healthy breasts, being like, "Yay, I did it! I've made it!" Like, let us know truthfully how you're gonna feel in 6 months, in a year, the next day. And I've watched the videos of like, I love the music they had. Be like, did that? It's just like that, like Alexa, or not Alexa, I can't even think of like a medication where it's like the people running in the field or eating a salad, happy music. Yeah, exactly. But like, because I pay attention to their face when they look at themselves in the mirror once they get it unwrapped, and
and it's
I
yeah,
don't get that sense
a
that it's
lot of times it's this like, oh, I'm so
yes, I don't
happy.
get a sense that it's like, oh my god, this is or
No,
I'm trying to explain what.
yeah, and that's exactly the
First
like
of all, they
right,
know they're being filmed for fucking
right,
content creator-y clickbait shit, which, by the way,
yeah,
definitely is all over YouTube. I've seen
yeah.
some girl's life being destroyed by some trans-identifying male that turned into a woman, that now he's convinced his girlfriend to turn into a man, and he filmed the journey. That's the most content creatory. They have like
Oh,
a limousine bus where they're all like playing video games, chilling on their YouTube money. And I don't know, that girl, first of all, looks like she's trapped in this relationship. Is horrifying. Yeah, they filmed her experience, and her reaction, I was like, that
yeah,
doesn't look like, yay. First of all, it's just, I can't.
yeah.
um
Yeah, and that whole like, I mean, if I were to get on YouTube and cut myself with a razor blade,
right.
I would be getting in trouble,
Self-harm, yeah.
and people might be calling the police to come and check on me. But in this case, we've got doctors cutting off body parts, and people
Making
are
it
like,
like a joke and
yeah,
hashtagging Titus
yeah.
Deletus and little
Oh
booby
God.
squishies with the, I know. Fucking
Oh.
can't.
Yeah, I
And then
can't. I
also
know.
taking their business onto TikTok, where they
Right.
fucking know
They're
the
finding
youth
kids.
hang out on. That is
Exactly. Yeah. To me, it's
children
exploitation.
use it. I
Yeah.
mean, hugely,
And
shamelessly, they don't
yeah.
care. Come
Yeah, it's
on.
disgusting. And so like your friend group, how do you get like, have you been able to get through to them? Have you been able to like make an impact? Because I just feel like we got
Mm.
to have some skills here to figure out how do we break through this, because it's horrific.
I've had, a male just go off on a tangent about the J.K. Rowling thing, and all I've been is honestly nice to them, being like, hey, if you can read J.K. Rowling's recent write-up about it, where she's completely empathetic to the transgender community. Of course, they twist that on its head and be like, oh, just they make fun of her own trauma. Dear God, I can't even. Something about the trans-identifying males and women's sports. Seriously, are you kidding me? Trying to say that I'm ridiculous. I was like, what? Anyways, yeah, I mean, I've had my girlfriend, I lost my best friend, female. Yeah, I've had some people message me and be like, keep fighting the fight. Actually, been men. I don't think I've had a single, like a couple. I mean, I think most people honestly are being very quiet about this. I don't really
Yeah.
know what they're thinking, because they're terrified, or they're just not seeing it play out in their life because they
Right.
don't live on Twitter or whatever, or they're
Yeah,
just
they
not paying
might be.
attention. They're
Yeah.
not paying attention to what
Yeah, they
Biden's
might be
saying.
pretty oblivious. Yeah, they
Yeah,
might be. Yeah. And that's the other thing, is that we're being shut down. We're not allowed to talk, and so we're being shut
yeah.
down. So it's
That's
hard
what
to
I
get
was
the
saying. Yeah.
message out, because
Yes.
whenever I'm on Twitter, I talk about men who claim to believe they feel like women. I can't say these lying fuck asses. It's what I want to say.
Sometimes I get angry and I'll say the cuss words because I've had enough. Like at the end of the day,
Yeah,
I
I
can.
mean,
Mm-mm.
I try not to,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. I know what
it's
you mean.
horrifying to me that we have to be so cautious about how we say things so that we don't get banned. And
Yeah.
typically, I wouldn't mind if I got banned from Twitter, but as a result of my involvement with Partners for
Mm.
Ethical Care and the Compassion Coalition, I'm really trying to keep my Twitter account open so that we
Yeah,
can
yeah.
keep educating and hopefully reach some people who,
Yes.
either parents who are just getting into this with their kids and going, "What's going on?"
Mm-hmm.
or parents
I can imagine.
who have lost their kids, or kids who are like starting to dabble in it and maybe want to explore it a little bit, get the other side. I just feel like it's important to have those educational resources available. and
Yes.
and if I go so far as to say that somebody's a man when they're really a man, I might get my account banned. It's really quite absurd. I mean, it's just
It
hard to
is. Yeah, I've
imagine.
seen that whole list of people that have gotten banned for the stuff they've said where it's like nothing is like hate speech or violence or
Yeah.
some of it is like it didn't even have anything to do with this transgender thing. And I was like, what? Like, I mean, first of all, Twitter is just ridiculous. They don't care about free speech. And um, the transgender community is like BFF with, or at least one of them I know is like elbow rubbing, or I feel like a lot of them are really close with the like either creator of Twitter or the
Yeah.
co-creator. Because I've seen a photo with one of them hanging out with one of them, whatever
Yeah. Well,
event.
and
But
you interviewed Jennifer Bielek, didn't you? And she talked
mm-hmm.
about, I mean, the money here is
Yes,
enormous. The amount of money
yes.
in this industry, I mean, it is an industry.
Oh
So I
man,
talk about it
massive.
as a culture and ideology. Underneath all that, underpinning it is an industry that is
Yes.
making so much money. And we saw how hard like cigarette companies fought to try and pretend like cigarettes were
How
actually healthy.
secretive they were too.
Yeah,
The whole
and how
yeah.
secret, yeah, and the opioids. So we've seen this before, but in this case, I've never, it's amazing to me how we're getting executive orders from the White House, basically eliminating women as a category, and I'm like, whoa, like
Yeah.
this isn't just sort of companies trying to make money. This is deeply entrenched, and they are making so
Totally.
much money that it's hard to imagine fighting it without. I mean, I don't know if you're old enough to have watched Silkwood. It's a movie about
Nope, but right now.
nuclear reactors and this
Hmm.
woman who was trying to like blow the whistle on um, on what was happening in the nuclear reactor she worked at,
Hmm.
and basically she was killed by the company. And I kind of feel that way. Like
Hmm.
if we start getting close enough, if we start making enough noise, are we going to be having to look in a rearview mirrors in hopes that we're not being, stalked by these multimillionaires who don't want to lose their income? And it sounds kind of paranoid, but at the
Well,
same time, when you look at the amount of money that these companies, that these surgeons, that these pharmaceutical companies are making, there's so much money involved, that it wouldn't surprise me if bad things happen to people who talk too loudly.
I mean, I feel like there's so many movies made about this or books written about it. I haven't read 1984, but I've seen plenty enough quotes to get the idea about the language being messed with. You twist language around enough to where it doesn't have any meaning. You know, what is it? He who controls the language controls the world, or something,
Right,
something
right.
like that.
And also the otherizing that's happening. Because that's something that, fascists do. That's something that Hitler did was, if you can make the opposition seem non-human,
Yeah.
and therefore it's okay to hurt them, it's okay to
Oh
kill them.
God.
And that's really a lot of what's going on here is
Hmm.
this, this sense of, if you're transphobic, you're not just transphobic, you're also a bigot and you're also a Nazi, and Nazis deserve to
Yeah.
die.
Yeah.
And that's really,
Jesus Christ.
and I wish that I weren't making that up,
Yeah.
but that I've seen this kind of thread a lot. Like when the government falls, the turfs are going to be the first ones against the wall. There's this sense that they're just waiting gleefully in order to kill us. This is really freaky, and
Yeah.
I hear myself talking, and I'm like, you sound a little weird, but I'm
No,
like,
you don't. Not at all.
this
Not
is
at all.
really
I've had,
happening.
yeah, I've
This
had
is
other
really
women
happening.
ask me like, "Are you not afraid of like physical violence?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "That's a valid concern." I've heard
Mhm.
about how Megan Murphy was treated, I think in Vancouver, wherever that was, that library
Yeah.
thing. And also the woman you interviewed about that bathroom ordeal, where
Yeah.
that was like, I just can't. I mean, as if why is it that, I don't know, you and I get it. And I also asked my friend Amy this, like, are we so steadfast in speaking out about this and just being truthful and just every day working on this truthfully night and day? It's exhausting. It's so worth it, by the way, even though it is really painful at times. I feel like it's women that have had sexual trauma that
Yeah,
like really get how dangerous this is. So then
right.
in a sense where I'm like, if someone hasn't had trauma, are they just not gonna get the how like what this is? You know what I mean? So I'm
Yeah, I
like, fuck.
wonder. Yeah, I
Um,
wonder. Or if some of them have had trauma and they're so scared that they're running away from it. I mean,
that's a good point.
I think
Yep.
it's sort of women who have nothing to lose. You know, I have firmly accepted that something
Mhm.
bad might happen to me. And on some level, I guess I feel like I've had bad things happen to me and I've survived.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so this is worth the risk because this is children. This is children. This is our entire society. And sometimes you have to be willing to get hurt and maybe even to get killed in order to stand up for what's important.
It's
And
worth it.
hope,
Yes.
I hope more people will start doing that. I mean, especially those on the left who are, they're the ones who are always like trying to stand up against, for the marginalized people and
Mhm.
stand up against injustice. I mean, there isn't a more marginalized person than an autistic girl who has been sexually traumatized and is suffering in a homophobic family, who has decided to cut off her breasts in order to become her authentic self. I mean, that's the girl we should be fighting for.
Absolutely. 100%. That's also why, you know, it's just not fair. Like these kids are being trained to believe that this is okay and it's natural and it's accepting of people that are not on this gender spectrum or whatever. It's equality, it's peace, yay.
Kumbaya.
What is it? Living your true self.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
sick.
I see all these like banners in my neighborhood that say
Oh
things like
God.
hate is not welcome in my house.
Oh
And then
yeah,
like
those are definitely around here.
and they
Yep.
have, trans symbols. And I'm like, guess what?
Oh my God.
You don't even know the definition of hate anymore. And I guess it's not
No.
surprise because you don't know what the
No.
definition of man and woman or lesbian. So I guess that it's, I
Exactly.
mean, you know,
Well, their whole like I mean, hate speech now is speaking biological truths.
right.
That is now hate speech,
Yeah,
saying a man can't become a woman and a woman can't become a man,
right.
and women don't have penises, and that's literally hate speech.
Yeah, it's just bizarre.
So, there's so much um secretive under the radar lying like that where they say, "Ah, she's me, I'm saying hate speech," but the person that's hearing that is going, "Oh, well, that's just awful, no one should have hate speech," but they don't know
They
what
don't know.
they think hate
Right.
speech is, which
Not only that, but now it can be literally violence. When,
yes, yes.
I mean, and
You,
that's the thing that bothers me is that if I'm in a bathroom or a
oh
locker
God.
room, say I'm in a locker room, I'm taking a shower, and a man walks in and I freak out, I'm likely to be the one who's vilified.
Yeah,
I'm likely to be the one who's told that she's no longer welcome at the gym. I'm likely to be the one who's
I have heard of those
told,
stories actually,
yeah, I've
100%.
heard these stories. And so what does this mean that me trying to set up boundaries now is hate speech? It's
Exactly.
violence.
Yeah.
It's violence for me to want to have personal boundaries.
Yep. To say
What
no,
a,
just say no, and I don't need
what
an
a message to
explanation.
tell kids. What a message to tell little girls
I
at
know,
the
I know.
school. I can't even, I'm so enraged by that. And again,
100%.
that's where I get so whenever I start feeling like, gosh, I'm not sure I can do this anymore, it's
Oh
it's
yeah.
it's not particularly fun. It's
No, it's not. None of this
it's
shit is
like this
fun.
constant grind. It's this heaviness
Yep.
I wake up to every morning, and
Yep.
then I think about the kids, and I think you
Yes,
got to keep
exactly.
fighting. You just
The
got to keep
future. Yeah.
fighting.
Yep.
Yeah.
And yeah, I keep thinking like this has to rear its ugly head and reveal itself eventually because I just don't understand how this could last. And I've talked about it with my husband about how I don't know, just I don't know. I don't. It kind of breaks
Well,
my
and
heart,
that's the
honestly.
problem is that it will stop when enough girls and women get hurt.
Yeah.
And that's the problem is that there has to be this critical mass of women and girls who are sacrificed to this gender industry
Yeah.
before people are going to wake up, and that pisses me off. Like, I mean, it just it
Yeah.
again, it's like, how dare our society require that girls and women be sacrificed before we realize how harmful this is? I mean,
Yeah.
that
I feel
it's,
like we need a Akira Bell here or something like that, honestly.
yeah,
And I feel like America is a little bit too steadfast and up their own ass. Or I don't know what the word is. Kind of ignorant or America, fuck yeah, in the sense of like UK. This is I don't know how to explain this. UK seems more. At least they have the. You have to. I think you have to actually go through steps to get the self ID thing and get a certificate if I'm not
right. Whereas
mistaken.
here
But
it's just
here,
like,
I'm just a woman, or
yeah,
I am a
yeah,
man.
yeah,
You don't have
I'm
to do
a man.
anything.
And I can be a man today and a woman tomorrow, and I
Yeah.
can be a they the next day.
Yeah, that's what also kills me. How fluid you can be and how fluidity is encouraged, where it's like,
Right.
okay, sure, say someone's really trying not to offend you and say your pronouns, my pronouns now are, or let's, yeah, okay, my pronouns are he, they, or he, him. And someone's like, he, him. And I'm like, you're, you misgendered me because
Yeah.
right now, I changed as you were saying that. Now I'm a swid self, so
Yeah.
fuck you. Like,
Yeah. Well, and
well,
it's
it's
just
impossible to
encouraging this,
navigate.
like, this constant, like, like, you have offended me. You've
Yeah.
offended me. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
you've offended me. And that's the other thing that I
Which
worry
is,
about
yeah.
children is that their ability to be resilient is really being undermined because they're being
Mm.
taught that somebody using a pronoun that they don't like is actual violence. And what happens to these kids when they go out there in the world and they experience real violence? They're going to be completely ill-equipped to handle life. I mean, and I hope that they don't. I mean, I keep, ever since I
Of
was a little
course.
kid, I was hoping that we grow up in a world where is this a peace sign anymore? Or, like, I don't even,
Oh my
I'm
God,
like,
I
now
think
I'm
so.
worried,
Last I
like,
checked.
is this still okay? Is it still okay?
Yeah,
Or
I
is it
think
some kind
so.
of like symbol of,
Oh my
turfdom?
God.
It's a turf
Uh,
symbol.
I wouldn't be surprised if honestly, I mean, let's
They're going to be like,
fuck it.
oh, we always knew it. She was a turf. We knew it.
Oh my God. Oh yeah, the turf bangs. Have you heard that shit? I'm like,
What's the
turf
turf?
bangs? I don't know. That turfs have turf bangs. And I'm like,
Oh, awesome.
oh, okay, because you guys, I mean, how ridiculous. It's so
It's because
stupid.
we have hair up front, whereas bald men don't. And so,
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Oh my God, maybe. Yeah, 100%. Good point. Oh my God, which is also it could be a gender thing.
yeah.
Yeah. So the whole boundaries thing is that it's teaching you. Oh, what was it? Oh, it was only predators have problem with boundaries, and I'm like,
Oh,
oh,
wow. That's
I
really
know. I was
true.
like,
That's
fuck, that's
really true.
true. Yep.
Yeah. And that could be another reason why like mainstream America isn't getting this is because, most people do have, certain set of boundaries
Hmm.
and they're not getting it. They're not going to get it until like, what happened to Blair or Tyndall, where there's, two guys doing it in the bathroom, in the women's bathroom, and there's a little girl in
Oh
there.
my
I
God.
mean, and then they're going to be like, whoa, what's going on? I mean, again, it's got to be like,
we shouldn't have to
so
be put in that place where that even happens. You know? Yeah, it's
yeah, it has
ridiculous.
to be so egregious before people stand up and are willing to be worried about it. And I also believe on some level, there are a lot of men who are laughing because they have
Oh,
a certain
of
degree
course.
of, they've had this anger towards women, and all of a sudden women are getting their heads smashed in athletics.
Of
All of a
course.
sudden
Of
women
course.
are getting their comeuppance by having men in the bathrooms. And I do feel like, I mean, I don't think it's even like most men, but there definitely is a population of men who are getting a kick out of this because they're
I
pissed
honestly think
off.
like it's more than I thought it was. Yeah, this whole thing is honestly it's encouraging so much misogyny, and it is the most misogynistic movement ever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I don't think I got that. I don't know if I just didn't really understand the degree of misogyny, or
yeah,
even if I
same.
had like, I definitely had a fair amount of self-hatred. My
Mhm.
vagina has not been my friend a lot of times.
Mhm.
I feel like it's what's gotten me abused and assaulted, there, and so I think
Well,
that I had a fair amount of, internalized misogyny,
of
I guess you'd
course.
call it.
Yeah.
And without even, I was pretty oblivious. And it's
Yeah.
really
I know what you're saying
been
100%.
recently where I'm like, like it's not a good feeling to realize
Mm-mm.
like
Nope.
I've been part of the problem all this time. And I
I've
haven't
had
been
the
doing
same
it.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same
Well, because
thing.
you said that you just sort of kind of went along with it.
Well, it's just everywhere.
Yeah.
I don't know how or why it happened. I don't know whether it was just I had to deal with it being a woman, and I can't think of like even specific situations of how, you know, I don't know. I've just never seen feminism and feminists portrayed in a gentle manner.
Yeah.
Um,
Or the
in
hairy,
Hollywood or
smelly,
whatever it is.
hairy,
Yeah, yeah,
smelly.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I've like
Short
hairy,
hair,
smelly.
not shaved,
Yeah,
whichever. Which, by the way, doesn't. That's fine. That's not a
yeah.
gross. I mean, I believed it to be like a ew, like hairy. Oh my god. Well, it's just like oh weird. That's not very female or feminine. Yeah, I don't know if it's from me growing up in the South or what. Um,
I think it's part of just being in this culture. I mean, there's just
yeah,
so many messages about what it means to be a woman, what it means to be acceptable. And I think that it's so easy just to kind of get that in. I mean, it's hard to escape. I would be
hmm
surprised if, I mean, I guess if you're not, in the loop, if you're kind of
yeah.
isolated, then you might be able to, get away from it, but it's everywhere, these messages that our value is based on our how attractive we are,
Yeah,
how big our tits are, how big
oh
our
yeah, it's so
no,
subconscious though. It's such at a
yeah,
level of like I never thought about it.
yeah,
It was just so truly ingrained in me. This is supposed to look a certain way, or maybe a certain way that you look is more desirable. So I come from the costuming world. Let me mention that real quick.
yeah,
Cosplay and whatnot, hugely into that, and I love sewing and whatnot. But it got to be a thing where these bolt on tit women
yeah,
that literally rise to fame. And I never really did the cosplay thing to be famous, and I don't think fame is anything what it's chalked up to be even remotely. I don't want that many eyes on me, like in that sense.
yeah.
But at the same time, when I post something that I'm really proud of, and I take so many hours on like hand painting something onto a costume to make it look shaded like it's actual folds on a dress like thing, but it wasn't folds, it was painted on, it was an illusion. So many hours spent on it, but it doesn't matter because if you're not showing your fucking cleavage and
Right,
tits, what does it matter? And I got really
right,
frustrated with that. And some men were like, "Oh, well, those are just apples to oranges." Like, women that parade around with their breast out, which is hugely in the cosplay scene, by the
yeah,
way. They aren't the same level as you, who you spend a lot of time on your craft and don't parade around with
right,
your tits out. And I know
right,
what they're saying, and I know I agree, but I always use this example. Like, if I was at a convention and I had a booth of like my own skills and sewing and painting costume stuff next to uh, I guess Patreon now is fine, and there's still some nudie stuff on Patreon. I think a lot of
yeah,
people moved to OnlyFans because Patreon used to be like nudie stuff, but now it's OnlyFans. But if I had a girl next to me that was,
right,
OnlyFans, total, I don't even know how to say the word bimbo
yeah,
anymore because now
yeah,
they've used that. Anyways, I'm like, well, I can't even compete with that
right.
because it's obviously, and to the point where I'm like, it's not even fair to men that don't even realize that they're being lured in by this fucking trap of like titties. Like, what are you gonna be?
Yeah,
Not like allured or not look at it? Give me a fucking break. Like, these girls are not subtle about it at
right,
all. It
right.
is, and it kills me because their costumes are, I mean, almost always like really well done, and half the time I don't even know if they do the whole costume. Which, anyways, where like it's an actual beautiful costume, but I'm like, even when I look at it, all I can see is your tits. Like, put
Yeah,
them away.
yeah,
And it got to be a really disturbing thing where a
yeah,
girl did a slutty Buzz Lightyear costume, and I was like, what are you doing? Do you want to appeal to children? That's a
right,
children's fucking movie.
right.
And people are like, oh my god, that's so cute. And I'm like, what the hell? I'm
Yeah,
sorry that I see that. I'm like, you clearly want to like, you can't play stupid here. I mean, maybe she was stupid. I didn't realize that you would pull in youth, like
yeah.
children.
Well,
Like,
and
that's
that's
so
something that's so
disgusting.
frustrating to me is, again, I'm older than you, and it felt like we were moving away from that where, there was sort of a more androgynous look
Mm.
that, women
I
didn't
think that
have
was big in
to,
the 80s.
yeah, they didn't have to have their TNA in
Yeah.
order to be, it was more just
Mm-hmm.
like, let's look at the person. Let's look at the
Mm-hmm.
person.
Yeah.
And now, like, I'm like, all right, so either women are throwing other women under the bus or women actually have no power because something's going on here that I
I
mean,
think
I
it's
I
both.
can't believe when I watch TV now, like the sexualization of women is just
Oh,
outrageous.
good
And
Lord.
I'm
Yeah.
not a prude. I mean, I made porn.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not real happy I did that, but I'm not someone who's like, "Oh," but
Neither
I'm
am
just
I. Not
like,
even
yeah,
remotely. I
I'm
totally get
just
what you're
like
saying.
constantly now like, why? why
Yeah.
is this in our faces all the time? And again, another reason why girls might decide, hey, I'm getting rid of these. I want someone to see
Oh
me
yeah.
for who I am,
Yes.
rather than as
Yes.
the tits that are growing
Yes.
from me. So it's
That
not
kills me too.
surprising
Yeah.
again that, I
No.
mean, all these factors are sort of coming together. It's like this
Yes.
tidal wave, and it just it's and then they have people encouraging it. I mean, instead of
Slyly.
instead of us like trying to say, your tits don't define who you are,
Yeah.
which is the message that we should be giving girls, we say, go ahead and chop them off. Or go ahead and show them off. I mean, that's sort of the message girls
Yeah.
have. They can either chop them off or show them off if
It's
you're a girl.
empowering to
It's
sell
your choice.
your body and get
Right.
nude on OnlyFans. Didn't
Right.
you hear? I mean,
Right.
also there's this thing called like cosplay boudoir photo sets of
Right.
girls on the bed and lingerie, as if a white bra has anything to do with any costume character, like say
Right.
Elsa. I'm like, you're just wearing a bra and a blonde wig. How is that Elsa? Get
Yeah.
the fuck out of here. It's so ridiculous. I'm like, just go. I mean, like, but that's also extremely normalized within the cosplay community. I mean, I've seen in come on, it's so upsetting because Yaya Han, I'm ashamed of you, goddammit. I don't care. She's one of those big tit bolt on people. That I'm sorry, like this is what girls look up to, and I don't think she does like the OnlyFans stuff, but still, it's just like girls look at that, and it's such a subconscious thing where they think that that's what cosplay is, and they see that that's what gets the most attention. And if you want to do it because you like the attention of, wow, that costume looks amazing, because people like to be appreciated for the work that you do. But if you see that you can shortcut that to getting fake breasts or doing nude photo sets online, why would you not? I mean, it's
Right.
so easy.
Yeah.
And if you
And
don't think about the
especially, yeah.
repercussions because you're young and you can't grasp like
Right.
what that actually is,
Right.
you could so
Right.
easily fall into that. And it's so easy now to do that.
Yeah. And then when we have people who, I believe we now have a vice president who's supportive of legalizing sex work. And
God.
again, as someone who's engaged in sex work, and I hate that
Sex work
term.
is work. Oh
Um,
God, how
yeah, I
insulting.
mean, I don't think people who are advocating this have any sense of how vulnerable people are. We have rules and regulations to protect workers, and there's no way you could set rules and regulations for prostitution that would protect the woman. There's just no way. We have rules and regulations for human subject research, because we know that there are people who get so desperate that they're willing to do horrible things for money,
Mm,
and
mm,
that we as a society need to protect them. So we have rules and regulations for human subject research, because we don't want people experimented on in
what do you mean by we? Who?
the society,
Oh,
the
okay.
government. If somebody tried to do a study where they were like, hey, we're going to pay you $10,000 if you'll let us chop off your breasts,
Mm-hmm.
there's no way that would fly. It would
Mm,
get shut down.
mm,
The government would not allow that. But if it's under the auspice of this transgenderism, then it's okay. But again, for we have historically, there's been times where humans have been horribly exploited and under the name of research, and people have recognized that we need to protect humans, our fellow humans, from putting themselves in situations where they're really vulnerable, from putting themselves in situations where they can get hurt. That's sort of an obligation that we have. And now we're saying sex work is work. Well, people need to really understand what sex work means. I mean, it's
mm-hmm.
basically paid rape. If somebody's not willing to have sex with you unless you pay them, it's coercion. And so again, we're undermining that whole concept of consent, and that's dangerous for kids. And we're trying to, you know, when I was a kid, if there was a homemaker who wanted to come in and be like the professional, how they have like career day, and they have
Mm, mm-hmm.
talk about the careers. If a woman came in and was like, I'm a homemaker, people would be like, boo, hiss, But now you can have drag queens come in, and everybody's
Oh
like, yeah,
God.
hey, that's so cool. And I wouldn't be surprised if we start having prostitutes come in and talk about sex work.
Yeah.
And again, what does this do to girls? To know that their bodies are a commodity.
Oh God.
It's just again, it's
Invasive.
yeah, it's
Just
knowing those boundaries over and over again.
pushing that ideology and subtle thoughts in the youth's head. Like, why
Yeah,
the hell are you going to schools reading about, or just asking kids mentioning the gender thing, like really young, where it's obvious. It's so obvious to me what it is. Get them confused young. Get them hooked on. Get them, you know, curious enough to like look this up, and all the resources online are never ending. You know, there's this whole content creator YouTube world of people being like, yes, that's great, and lying to the world. Tumblr or TikTok, it's just everywhere.
And
So,
doctors, like you mentioned, the
oh,
surgeons,
it's all on
Gallagher.
purpose. Yeah.
I mean, people
So
are.
then there's nowhere along the line for these children that hear anything about it where this is dangerous, think twice, there's another side to it. Nowhere, because it's being deleted, blocked, banned. Also, algorithms play a huge factor into this. So say that dysphoric video is still on YouTube. It's still on YouTube, but you got to realize how the algorithms play, where sure, it could still be there, but it's going to be hidden from the public eye, where people won't naturally see it along their suggested or whatnot, to where it has to be shared. Because I looked at the views and I was like, that's only the views that it's got. And I was like, oh, right, algorithm. And also the algorithm plays into the fact of this stuff is purposely shown to youth because they can figure out how old the person is using the device just by algorithm.
Right.
And
and it's interesting on the other thing that I've noticed on my videos, and you might notice at some point too, that I'll have a video that's gotten like 2,000 views, and then the next day it's down to 700.
Oh, really? Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm
Have
very
you looked
serious.
at the little analytics thing?
Oh,
You can like go to the YouTube studio to see the
I should
analytics.
probably go look at that. That was before I got a certain number of monetization before, and so I don't know if that's changed now, but I should go look at it. And even
I'm
like,
certain there's fuckery going on like that.
yeah,
100%.
I think there's stuff going on all the time,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's really, it's like
Wikipedia, cough, cough.
And that's the other thing. I don't know if you've noticed on your videos. I'll be curious if you start getting targeted ads underneath. Like a lot of my videos have a link to Wikipedia where they talk about conversion therapy, because they're saying that conversion therapy is it's okay to like prohibit children from getting therapy that helps them understand the underlying causes for their gender identity issues. And so they're banning this nationwide, internationally. The UN is even trying to criminalize it internationally. So
psychology, like going to a therapist?
Like going to a therapist to get help for your gender identity issues.
Yeah, I mean, it's all in the documents. That's not a thing, because that becomes gatekeeping to them getting their hormones and progressing in their fucking journey, which is that whole document. I keep bringing it up because it was one of the first things I discovered from Jennifer Bilex blog. I think IGLYO, which is, I don't know if it was the George Soros one. George Soros is a different one, but it has all of this stuff written out. And how they do all this and what they encourage, and don't get too much exposure. And one of them was get ahead of the government. Like all this is out there, and I was like, oh my god, this is public like use. Like anybody can read this. I'm like, okay, fine. Don't believe what I say. Look at their fucking document. It is the most telling thing. I was like,
11th hour. I believe it's 11th hour.
Yeah, the 11th hour blog.
Yeah. If you think we're just making this up, go look. No. There's, and that's the other thing is I document. I take screenshots. Document this because I want people to know when I say that people have threatened to kill me, I'm not just making that up. I have documentation of it.
Yeah.
When people talk about, I mean, I don't even know why you'd have to document it with the kind of threats J.K. Rowling has gotten, which is just outrageous. But one thing that I encourage people to do is to document, because they take down, one of the things that has happened.
Download your Twitter.
There'll be stuff on there and then it's gone. And so, I mean, it's, but there is, people we're not just making this up. We're not just being hysterical women. I mean, there's
fear mongering. I sent someone that 11th hour thing and they were like, that just read as fear mongering. And I'm like, all right, I can't help you. Like also, Jennifer's blog is one of the first things as well as that I read. And, it sounded so outrageous to me, even though I love conspiracies and it's a conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy theory, but she provided plenty of sources and links, and I didn't just rely on her sources and links. I Googled the shit out of everything she was saying and everything about this. And I mean, but that's the thing, is that people don't have the time to look this up, and they don't look beyond headlines, and they just really want to believe what they want to believe, which is lies. Because do you know how uncomfortable this is to realize how people have been living in, believing this sham and this fucking...
And then our children are being experimented on. I mean...
Yeah, to,
Yeah.
to sit there and like admit to maybe yourself that you were for this, or you donated money for this, or you've been
Right.
advocating for the transgender movement,
Right.
to sit there and really admit to yourself and possibly your family or your friends and come to them now and be like, I fucked up. Like, who's
Yeah.
gonna do that?
I did it.
That's
Yeah. I mean,
oh, I mean, I know.
that's how
I
I
think
got
that's also
involved in it.
interesting.
Yeah.
How are we the ones that are like, we have
Yeah.
no problem standing up for this, what it
Right.
is right and truthful.
Yeah. I
And I
mean,
think that
for
says a
me, I
lot
think
about our spirits.
for
And
you,
yeah.
it's more interesting than for me because I have it. I had the history of being a trans kid. I had that experience to
Oh
like
wait, what do you mean?
motivate me. Oh,
I don't know. I'm like,
oh, you don't know about this? Oh,
no.
okay.
Do tell.
Do
That's what we're here
tell.
for, Erin.
So, yeah, that's actually how I got involved in this is that I got a letter from Equality Utah, which I had donated to in the past, and they said that they were going to ban conversion therapy. And so I started reading through the email and I realized they were trying to ban the therapy that helped me when I was a trans kid. And so I went to the state legislature to testify about my experience being, you know, I had extreme gender dysphoria as a kid. I wanted
Oh
to be a
wow.
boy. I had to go see the school psychologist because the teachers were so concerned.
What grade or age was this?
It was right after the sexual assault. So right, in
Go
kindergarten,
figure.
I was this, cute little happy kid. First grade came along and I was a mess. And I was like, my name's Timothy. I'm a boy.
Oh
I was
wow.
physically aggressive.
Wow.
I was very troubled. And thankfully, my school psychologist said, oh my gosh, this kid's got some issues. We need to help her, rather than, of course you're a boy. Because what that would have done if they had said, of course you're a boy, is it would have reinforced the self hatred that I had, the shame that I had, the belief that I had that my body had caused the sexual assault. It would have reinforced the idea that I was, that there was something very wrong about me. And so I'm so thankful that I didn't get caught up in this. But if I were a kid today, I would have. And
Yep.
so for me, it makes sense. But for you, it's less like, I mean, is it just this sense of like seeing women being erased and the concept of woman being
Yeah.
appropriated?
Yeah, I see that. I see it. Also, it's such a that where you know trauma happens to you, and I've heard this time and again of rape victims or victims of sexual assault or abuse that they don't really tell anyone because they blame themselves. Oh my God, it was my fault or whatever. I mean, I don't even necessarily believe that that's maybe what anyone told them. It's just some sort of an internalized thing, maybe, or maybe it is patriarchy or whatever. Where but also it's also what's so interesting is that it used to be men back in the day that would become transgender or try to trans or change, which by the way, biological sex is immutable. It's not possible. It's a myth. Let me remind you. But what's so telling is that all of a sudden it became little girls or like
Yeah,
teens. And I'm
yeah,
like, hello? Well, of course, young girls that are like puberty is so awkward and getting men
sure.
whistling at you and making comments about your cold nipples because you didn't have a bra that would hide that or a padded bra. And like, that's what I felt. And it was horrifying and gross. I felt like an object. It was so
Yeah,
nasty. And it was always, always, always from older men, like adult
yeah,
men. I just knew as a young girl that it was really, I felt unsafe. I
yeah.
knew it was something scary
And it
and,
was like your fault that those nipples got hard and showed
oh
through your
my
shirt. Like
God.
it's something
Ugh.
like,
Oh my
yeah.
God.
And now, I mean, that's what I think.
So of course, like, girls would want to escape that because it's a
Yeah,
gross feeling, and no one likes puberty. It's not a fun thing.
right,
Maybe
right.
schools or something should be more honest about it and be like, you're going to be really uncomfortable.
Yeah,
This is something you have to go through because I believe it's one of the most important things of a body's life
yeah,
to grow, just to grow into the body you have and to
right.
halt the growth process. I'm
Yeah,
just like, are you fucking kidding me?
yeah,
There's going to be serious repercussions for that
yeah,
because you're stopping the natural human
right.
growth. I don't care about the sex, a male or female. I'm talking
Yeah,
about the growth of a
yeah.
body. If you stop that,
You're inducing a developmental delay. In what world
yes,
do we cause children to have developmental
on
delay and
purpose.
feel good about it and
And say that
celebrate
going
it?
through puberty is like abuse. Have you heard that thing
Yeah,
now? Going through
yeah,
natural puberty is like, how
yeah.
dare you? Or
Yeah,
just,
and I just have no doubt that if this continues, we're gonna have 6-year-old boys being castrated and girls as soon as they start getting breast buds, getting those cut off. Like,
yep.
that's where I see this going.
I mean, it already
And
kind of is. Like, yeah.
we already have documented 13-year-olds getting their breast cut off and 15-year-olds
I've
getting
seen some
castrated.
images of just the, looking at that age, how
Yeah.
young that is, it's like
Yeah.
that,
So young.
say you live to be 85. Oh my God, your
Yeah.
life, you didn't even get a
Yeah.
chance to even think for. I mean, this is crazy. This whole
Yeah.
thing of like, you go in there and I just don't understand
Oh,
going to a doctor.
informed
Yes, I don't
consent.
understand going to a doctor and the doctor being like, well, you tell me. Actually, you know
Yes,
what?
go
I'm
ahead.
gonna give
What
you my
what does this look
stethoscope
like?
because you're the doctor now.
Oh,
Ugh.
and here's the prescription pad. Go ahead and write out whatever
Yes.
you
Oh,
want.
here you go. You know best.
Exactly.
Why the fuck are they there? Like, what are they there for? Why are we listening to
Yeah,
children?
yeah,
Children know better than
yeah,
the rest of the world who have grown through life and experienced life and
yeah,
you see life at a different perspective and a
yeah,
different every almost like I don't know if there's a number on it, but say every 10 years you have a new
yes.
the book has been turned and you can look back even at your own life and be like, oh my God,
Oh,
this is
yeah,
happening because of what happened to me then when I was a child. And you
right.
can't be old enough to then look back at that, I believe, until
Yeah.
you reach a certain age. So
And
it's so
maturity. And
cool.
you have to go through
Yes.
puberty to do that. You have to
Yes.
I mean, and one of the things that was probably the most powerful for me is having kids of my own and looking
Mm.
at back at them at ages where I thought I was like had it all together and being
I
like,
bet.
oh no, I was not old enough to be doing this. When
Mm.
I realized when I looked at my 14-year-old daughter and realized at her age I was on birth control pills and I was occasionally, prostituting. I'm like,
Oh, man.
oh,
Right?
there's
I
no
know.
way. There's no way I was like at all equipped to be making a decision
No, it's
like
such a lot. It's such a very definite that age type of thing
that.
where you feel invincible,
Right,
you're never gonna die, I know
right.
better, fuck you.
Yeah. The adults are just trying to get in my way and mess up my
Exactly.
fun. Yeah, I mean, that's what teenagers
Exactly. There's
say.
so many
That's why they
angles to
need
this.
the boundaries, and again, it comes
Yeah.
to boundaries. That's why we have boundaries for teenagers because otherwise all hell breaks loose as
That's
we
why
see now.
adults should be able to sit there and go, I'm sorry, I know you feel this way. Well, let's get you therapy.
Yeah,
But I mean, I hate saying that thing if it's just a phase. We don't know. We
yeah,
need to be patient. And this is one of those things that you should not rush.
right.
I mean, children
Well,
don't know. You
I
just
don't
don't
know.
know.
I don't know. And one of the things I've heard Sasha Ayad say, and she's a therapist, but she suggested that we're therapizing our kids way too much.
Mm,
Kids historically have gone through puberty, and it's been rough, and they've made it
mhm.
without therapists and medication.
Yeah.
But now it's like parents are not really equipped to handle emotional
Yeah.
disruption in their kids. They get so concerned about it that they take their kids to therapists at the drop of a hat, and then the kids
Which a
feel
lot of
like
them are the
they're not
therapists that have
learning.
been,
Yeah, they're not learning
it's,
how to have these skills,
it's
and I guess a
brainwashed
lot of them
everywhere.
are medicalized with, antidepressants,
Mm,
anti-anxiety, so they're already
mm.
thinking, "I need medication in order to
Oh,
function."
that's a good point.
So I just wanted to put in a plug for Partners for Ethical Care.
Mm,
This is a relatively new organization, and the goal is to collect stories from people. So it's stories from parents, stories from detransitioners, stories from women who have been in bathrooms when men have come in, and told they're not allowed to complain. Stories from teachers who are uncomfortable with the what's being taught in schools. Just to gather stories so that we can document what's happening. It's really our goal. And so if you go to partnersforethicalcare.com, and there's a live chat built in. Most of the time there's somebody there who will do live chat, not always because we all are volunteers.
mm.
But if you send in your story and if you want more support, if you want resources, let us know, because that's the other thing that we try to do is provide resources, provide support. If you're a new parent to this and just like freaking out because your kid's going down this route, we have lots of resources, and we can help connect you with other parents, help get you in support groups. And same for detransitioners. If
Mhm.
you're a detransitioner, if you're suddenly realizing, ah, this was not the right thing for me, and that you're feeling really lost, then we'd love to be there to support you and help
Amazing.
with this. Yeah,
That's
so
fantastic.
yeah,
And you guys have a YouTube as well, YouTube channel?
yeah, we have a
Yeah.
YouTube. We have two different programs that we run on YouTube right now.
Mhm.
One of them is Common Sense Care, and it's specifically a parenting program. So helping parents to navigate if their kid comes home and says that they have a gender identity issue, does a parent do? And so that's one of the series. The other one is called Partners for Ethical Care Talks,
Mhm.
and we just do every week. We look at the news and kind of deconstruct it and analyze, how is this going to affect women and children. And so those are the two programs on the YouTube. And then I
Cool.
have a personal YouTube station
Yeah.
where I do what you're doing here. I've primarily tried to focus on people who have different perspectives on this,
Mhm.
so that we can document it, because I just feel like it's so important to archive these stories so that we have documentation of what went on, regardless of what happens in the future. These are really important stories that need to be captured.
Amen. Absolutely. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
So it's awesome that you're doing it too. Yeah, I
oh,
think
I
the
can't
more
wait.
Benjamin Boyce is another one
Yeah.
who's doing great
Oh, there's
stuff.
so many. That's great. We need more.
Yeah,
But
there's so
yep,
many.
keep
So
trucking.
that's what gives me hope, is that,
Mhm.
it's growing, that there's more and more
Mhm.
people who are saying, "Hey, wait a minute. We need to document what's going on. We need to put this
Exactly.
out there and educate and let people know." So thank
Keep
you for
speaking
what
the
you're
truth.
doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank
Okay,
you,
stay
Erin.
strong.
I'll, yep, exactly. We'll see you later.
All right, talk
Bye.
to you later. Bye-bye.